everyone, this is HMK. Tears of the Kingdom finally dropped the curtain on many secrets that resulted in many points of analysis with the latest trailer. But now I've got this huge video tackling my take on the full analysis of that trailer. And while a bunch of people thought we didn't see much, I'm here to show you that we have a ton of new things to see and to talk about. So if you're down for that, be sure to like, share, and most importantly subscribe to HMK. Let us begin. The Tears of the Kingdom trailer begins with these ominous wall murals being lit by a flickering flame, with the first showing what could be in fact a goddess, a god of the Zonai, an interpretation of Hylia. In any case, the similarities to Twilight art and iconography from Twilight Princess and the fused shadow is very apparent, as well as what seems to me to be a helmet or headdress looking like something that could be related to the barbarian helmet from Breath of the Wild, especially if we're considering these Zonai connections. In the next shot, we have a mural showing the onslaught of war. Could this be Hyrule's forces? Zonai forces? Well, one thing is for certain is that they're fighting against bokoblins and moblins, either being empowered by malice, or malice is shown to be more of a banner to symbolize the alignment these monsters serve. A pocket theory that I have is that this image shows how the Zonai abruptly vanished from Hyrule. It could be possible that these are indeed Zonai forces that were in league with the royal family of Hyrule that may have been on the front lines due to their skill in combat and magic, fending off these forces while waiting for aid from the royal family to arrive. But knowing that the Zonai were very skilled in their arts, the fear of them possibly rising up later against the royal family led to them making a decision to abandon them in the war, leaving them to be slaughtered and having their history erased, which could lead to the guilt of the family experienced from this choice, these Tears of the Kingdom. Following this, we have a bigger shot of this goddess-like figure, what appears to be tear-like items surrounding them. Could these be the collectible Tears of the Kingdom? Many people also stated that this may represent the number of dungeons in the game, which I would be great with. There seems to be 7 in total with circles around them, and this figure seems to be floating on a platform, much like possibly Skyloft. There is also writing on the wall, and what seems to be clouds representing sky, and lines representing the sun shining down. And now we have what seems to be Zelda, or a Maiden of Sacrifice, very similar to what we saw in Skyward Sword where Ghirahim was casting his spell, or maybe even the maidens from A Link to the Past being used to open the seal. At the bottom, you can see what represents malice rising up to this character, and on the right is presumably who is doing this ritual, but we can't truly see this individual. There are a number of ideas of what is going on here, but one of them I had is that this may represent what happened to Zelda in Twilight Princess when Ganondorf took her over. But there is also the idea that this could represent an earlier vessel for Demise's curse that predated Ganondorf, in which a spell may have been casted to transfer the curse to the original Ganondorf and the Gerudo tribe as a whole, leading to the idea of the sin manifesting the Tears of the Kingdom. Now, this final mural shot in the beginning is a bit tricky as we see more of it, albeit obstructed, at the end of the trailer. Here, we have some more writing on the wall as we see the maiden character from before, once again most likely to be Zelda, as Zelda's lullaby can be heard faintly in the background. Cup her hand with another entity, but look at the size difference of those hands. You can see that the wrist of the bigger character starts at the forearm of the smaller character to make their hands align. So it's basically universally accepted that this character could be the big goddess-like character from the previous murals, sharing a possible connection with Zelda. Maybe it's Hylia, someone connected to Hylia, thereby connected to Zelda. And above them, you can see 2 tears instead of 1 that mirror each other. That could represent these 2 figures. So our total of tears can be viewed as either 9 or 8. Personally, I believe it's 8 because one of these mirrored tears may represent the same tear at the top of the godly figure from the previous mural. And as we take a close on these hieroglyphic shots of the trailer, in the background of all of this, you can hear eerily similar sounds to Silent Realm Tears from Skyward Sword and possibly hints from Twilight Princess music. makes you think. Now it is time. This part of the trailer begins with Link opening a huge door, but this one scene has a lot to absorb. The first thing you'll notice is the big symbol on the door, two Zonai dragons meeting at the top to make the seal on the door, which goes in line with the logo of Tears of the Kingdom. But instead of consuming each other like Ouroboros, they are now faced head to head like dueling dragons. On their body, you can see what is believed to be Zonai writing, but not only there, but along the inner frames of the doors themselves. A bunch of circle patterns adorn the top of the door, but where Link is opening the door, you can see the same eye symbol that adorns Link's shield and what was on the mechanical enemy in the E3 2021 trailer, possibly a Zonai eye that predates the Sheikah eye before the tear was added. As he opens the door, a beautiful flare of light stabilizes into a gorgeous skyline above the clouds. To me, this feels a lot like the beginning of the original Breath of the Wild, where Link first exits the Shrine of Resurrection into the vast world of Hyrule, so I feel this will be the beginning portion of Tears of the Kingdom. Here, we see an altar in the distance that we've seen in previous trailers and in the key art, but something interesting to note is that we have vegetation, not unlike wheat, carefully lined up in plots of dirt along the walls, hinting at a society possibly living there and sustaining themselves through grain. As Link runs closer to the pathway, we see some architecture that seems to resemble wings, and it looks very similar to that of Vane Meadow's wings, and may even represent Loft wings from Skyward Sword, as this is indeed high above the sky. This next shot is completely unrelated to the previous, as Link is in a different area. Here, we can get a full view of his equipment, with the now famous apparatus that has replaced the Sheikah Slate. It looks to be a containment vessel for some sort of energy or liquid that many believe to be a power source to Link's arm, or a physical representation of his point in the journey where he is collecting important story elements to move forward. In any case, it is in the same position on his person as the Sheikah Slate was in Breath of the Wild, so I feel it is safe to assume that the slate will not be returning as a usable item in the sequel. And if you look closely, the shape of this attachment is very much in line with the mechanical entity that we've seen in the E3 2021 trailer and the Zonai eye that we've been seeing everywhere. Right there, it's at the very top. Another possibility to consider when looking at Link's design is the placement of the gauntlet that you can see here. Link actually has two of his sword arm bracers, the tough plate used to protect his sword-wielding arm. We have seen him utilize this in both Twilight Princess and in Breath of the Wild. You would think off the bat, oh, it's just a component from the Hylian tunic that was mixed in with the champion's tunic, since that top had gauntlets for both arms. But if you look closely, this is indeed two of the champion tunic bracers, which could insinuate that Link may be able to dual wield in this game, thus justifying the need to have two arm braces to protect both his sword-wielding arms. Exciting, huh? Of course, more weapon variety is something that should be expected. Now, when talking about the background, Link is standing on top of an island that has a clear pattern on its flooring, but it can't be fully made out from this perspective. In the background, we see trees of gold, which seems to go in line with the apparent exclusive coloring from most of the plant life above the clouds, save for some flowers. To Link's right, we see another island that is both part land and part structure, where what seems to be at the very top a diving platform from Skyloft in Skyward Sword. But wait, there's more. As we continue this shot, there's also a smaller island that Link passes by that very much seems to be the graveyard from Skyward Sword in Skyloft. I mean, the tree placement is even in similar positions and everything. So it really seems to me, just like in Breath of the Wild, Tears of the Kingdom will have some cool locational references to past Zelda game, but now to the point where they'll have areas they couldn't have before, such as sky islands above the clouds. Continuing on, we see in the distance a large building we've seen before in the E3 2021 trailer. A dungeon, it looks like it. I mean, it really does look like a dungeon to me. And on closer inspection, it looks like there's a banner waving in the wind at the bottom right of the building. Possibly some decorative adornments that would be near the entrance of this place. And another thing in this shot is that in the distance, what seems to be behind the top left area of the screen is what many people believe to be a tail of a dragon, either a new dragon or that of Naydra, which would make sense as the game's logo seems to deal a lot with dragons, and that dragons in Breath of the Wild do descend from and disappear back into the sky, except for that one case in Farosh in the water, whatever. However, when messing with this trailer in frame-to-frame motion, it seems that rather than this thing actually moving, it could just be the moving camera perspective that makes it appear like it's in motion. Furthermore, when zooming in beyond the trees on the other side of that island, it seems that this tail-like thing could just be part of a bigger structure that is simply blocked by the island from our vision. At the same time, it still could be a dragon. And of course, like I said before, the areas all around this shot all have golden trees, which obviously seems to be the norm in this region above the clouds. I mean, where are they feeding these trees? But there has to be something special to it, as we've seen golden petals in the wind in the box art for Tears of the Kingdom. Perhaps a similar level of pseudo-importance like the Silent Princess from Breath of the Wild. But something to also notice, these interesting understructures floating above Link. As Link dives into the clouds, we see that these understructures are indeed under the islands ahead of him, suggesting that there's even more islands above the previous shot. How high exactly do we go in this game? As Link dives, he assumes a freefall stance seen in the previous trailer, but you can see the color effects to represent the wind and speed of descent, as well as Link's own wind bubble breaking as he falls. As he goes beneath and through the clouds, we truly see how high we can get above Hyrule. The verticality in this game is going to be insane. Honestly, this is so high up that I believe that once you reach a certain threshold of distance below the clouds, that it will melt with the sky when you're looking at it from the land, meaning that the highermost islands won't even be rendered until you get closer to them. We will still see islands above Hyrule from the land, but there will be tiers of visibility when it comes to the height of certain islands. Now, we are here in the Faeron region, specifically Korta Lake, where Link is using the time reversal ability shown in the previous trailer from E3 2021. But as the shot begins, we see what seems to be an opening to a cavern, and this was not present in Breath of the Wild, trust me, I checked. So this may be an entrance to the heavily speculated underground that was discussed since the very first trailer. But as we rise up, you can definitely see designs within this rock that was undoubtedly originally part of the Sky Island. Hence why the revert effect is allowing the rock to return to where it originally belonged. Crazy diamond. We see even more smaller islands in the not so distant distance. That really gives me the idea of them being stepping stones, allowing you to go one step at a time to a new destination. But they seem to lead into a storm bubble. You can see within the clouded area swirling with sporadic lightning throughout. More than likely, we will have to clear this storm in order to advance in this specific area. But as we go up, we see an unknown form of life that was absent from Breath of the Wild. While this thing looks pretty similar to how a Keese looks in Twilight Princess, we already have Keese design in Breath of the Wild. So looking at it closely, it gives me vibes of being a Kagurok, one of the draconic designs akin to what we saw in Twilight Princess. Which is good, because it is slowly but surely increasing the enemy variety for Tears of the Kingdom. In this next shot, we see Link climb up a root grown into the side of an island. Here he has his new ancient robe design with his hair free flowing. Honestly, I think this would have been a great design for the box art, but hey, I ain't complaining, I love both looks. But check out his back. He has a new weapon, a very primitive looking weapon to me that seems to be a one-handed hatchet, made specifically for chopping up wood or other material, but can be used for combat. One-handed axes would indeed be really cool and would add to the pool of weapon, and thanks to the previous trailer when it comes to the shields and bows and basic thought process, it continues to drive the point that there will be more weapon variety within the established weapon types, but I need more. Anyways, here we see Link climb up an island from the root, but not from the side of the island itself. While this could completely be conjecture, perhaps the material these islands are made out of are similar in composition to the material that the Sheikah used to create their technology, shrines, etc, etc. Meaning, perhaps we cannot climb the Sky Islands from the side as we would do everything else in the game, thus having the need to climb on more natural organic material such as this root, limiting our options to ascend on these islands and pushing the need to figure out how to get higher and higher. This area also seems to be very snowy, in which we have to still be within or below the clouds at this point. And the fact that Link is running around with this outfit, at this height, with this weather, how are you not dead? And now, the final shot of the trailer. This is the money. Now, there is a ton to take in when it comes to this part of the trailer. First off, Link is free-falling against a beautiful sunset backdrop, but you can only see so many islands along the distance in the sky at Link's height level, which goes in line with what I said earlier in the video about the higher islands only appearing and being rendered from a certain distance of height. But as we mess around with the contrast, we do see a bunch of islands spread along the localized sky of Hyrule, with a ton being above Eldin, Akkala, and the Lunar regions of Hyrule from this perspective. As we can see the full shot of Link falling, we can place him a bit west of the Thundra Plateau in the Hyrule Ridge area of central Hyrule, basically on the line that separates it from the Hebra region. When looking at the islands in the distance of the east side of the map, we can see a pretty big island above the Lunar region, which I've affectionately dubbed District 9. That, along with all these other items, help ease my doubts on Nintendo's angle on these floating islands, as now we see a bunch, and while there are many small ones, we got the sight of some pretty big ones, so I'm glad to see how wild, get it, Nintendo and the Zelda team are gonna get with the Y-axis in this game. But I digress. Of course, we also need to talk about how the land below Hyrule got really messed up and what's going on in varying points. I've got a video specifically on this aspect, fleshing out ideas of what could be going on, so be sure to check that out. So let's talk about the most glaring. Obviously, we have Hyrule Castle floating above the ground, and it seems to be lifted and kept adrift by the power of the reddest, angriest malice, the power of an awakened Ganondorf. But as we look closely to the front area of the castle, it seems that the town area is still in ruins, meaning that either not a lot of time had passed between this game and Breath of the Wild, or that the rebuilding effort had not started, at least for Castle Town. And then, of course, we have to talk about Death Mountain, which seems to be spewing malice from the volcano's peak. Bro, now I could go on what I think is happening, but be sure to check out the other video for that. The TLDR is that I believe the malice is being emanated from Vah Rudania within the volcano. As we inspect the ground of the land of Hyrule, we can see a bunch of changes and additions when compared to the map of Breath of the Wild. First off, no Sheikah structures in sight, and when I say none, I mean none. No shrines, no towers, and crazy enough, no pillars. You know, the huge guarding containers that surrounded the castle in the previous game. So that is odd. I'm going in line with the idea that once Ganondorf wakes up, he's gonna snap his fingers or something and be like, no more Sheikah technology, and disintegrates everything. But also to note is that we actually have some weird structures on the ground, not particularly in their place, but still, like this one tower-like structure. Enhance? Yeah, I can't really make out what this is. All I know is that it's new. Now, I know there are other huge glaring things to talk about in this shot as the trailer goes on, but I want to fast forward a teensy bit and point out this small structure that's quite peculiar, right? It has some rings of glowing green energy, the same that we've seen since the first Tears of the Kingdom trailer. Here's what I think it could be. This could be a new type of warp point that may be combined with every other thing that I'm going to speculate about going forward. It could also be a jump point, which we could use this teardrop mechanic that we've seen in the second trailer that allows Link to jump from the ground all the way up to the Sky Island area, high above the clouds. This could also be a possible refill point to restore the power to the arm, or fill up the vials with magic that can be exhausted then replenished here. Or this could be a Sheikah Shrine entrance equivalent, or another type of entry point to the underground. What do you think it could be? Let's continue. Something that I do want to point out, as this trailer seems to be running the game in real time, is that the shot where Link is falling into this new gliding thing, the camera shifts its perspective quite quickly and the draw distance seems to remain quite consistent, and I don't notice any texture or structure pop-ins, which you can actually see back in the original final trailer for Breath of the Wild, which I feel is a good testament to the game being developed specifically on Switch, as well as Nintendo and Monolith Soft's ability. While a lot of people have pointed out these markings that look like the princess in the mural at the beginning of the trailer, there's actually another drawing on the ground to the immediate west of Hyrule Castle, and it looks like it could be that big goddess-like entity or an animal of some sorts. These giant marks are definitely quite ominous, and I feel they'll have drastic connections to the Zonai, making their presence known to Hyrule once again. And then we come to the floating falcon-like thing that Link boards as he's descending back down to Hyrule. From the architecture, we can assume that this is a Zonai built tool in which Link can use it to glide and carry him down to Hyrule much faster and farther than he will be able to do just on his own with a glider. And I'm sure that this thing won't cost him stamina either, so it has a ton of benefits for use when coming down from the sky, so much so that I believe you can only call upon it when coming down from a specific altitude threshold. As we close the trailer, finally, how long is this video? Anyways, here we see the two Zonai dragons, and yes, they are Zonai dragons, they've existed since Breath of the Wild, come together to make a symbol not unlike Ouroboros, the symbolic eternal cycle of destruction and rebirth. Usually Ouroboros is represented by a snake, serpent, or a dragon making a circle by eating its own tail. But in this case, we see that the Zelda logo shows two dragons consuming one another, which definitely still has the spirit of the concept of Ouroboros, but you know, with a Zelda spin to it. And this symbol could definitely be a reference to the eternal Zelda cycle, the cycle of the spirit of the hero and the blood of the goddess, forever bound to the hate of the demon in an everlasting battle over the Triforce, which I hope is featured significantly in this game, you know, the Triforce. As we look to the full logo of Tears of the Kingdom, we can see the insanely damaged Master Sword along with what seems to be a blueprint of what it could become. I've got another video fleshing out that idea, so be sure to check that one out. When it comes to the ideas of the meaning for Tears of the Kingdom, I've got another video on that one too, so be sure to check that one out. But another last aspect that I want to talk about is the mural behind the logo that is obstructed, but thankfully it isn't blurred out, so we can make out what it is. It is a full version of the previous shot of the mural in which who is assumed to be Zelda is cupping her hands with this giant entity. We can tell it's a goddess-like entity that we've seen throughout the trailer due to the headdress. But above these figures, we see what seems to be two of the tear-like objects facing one another as if they're looking into a mirror. This definitely suggests a massive connection between these two beings, where some say it's a connection between Zelda and Hylia, a connection between this goddess and Hylia, who is now represented by Zelda, etc, etc. While some claim that these tears now add 2 to the total 7, bringing it up to 9, I believe the true total once again is 8, as these two tears could either represent one or that the one above the goddess in the beginning of the trailer is actually already represented by one of these, which the total will still be 8. Which would make sense as Link's apparatus could be the container for these objects or tears, and it has enough vial connectors for 8. So it spells the idea for 8 or 9 dungeons. I am so down. As we bring the trailer to a close, we have the date of Friday, May 12th, 2023, which, by the way, for those that don't know their seasons, is still spring, my lord. And there you have it. I hope you enjoyed the HMK full analysis breakdown of the Tears of the Kingdom name reveal trailer. If I missed anything or you have anything to add, leave a comment in the comment section below, and while you're at it, be sure to like, share, and most importantly, subscribe to HMK. Big thanks to my Patreon supporters for helping making this video happen. If you want to find out how you can support HMK for just $1 a month, check out my info in the description box below, and be sure to check out some merch over at my shop at Fourth Wall. Alright guys, until the next video, this has been HMK, and I'll check you guys later.